Hi, this is Tony Robbins. Welcome to Creating Lasting Change, the 7 master steps for maximum impact. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me in this program. You and I are about to begin a journey. And that journey is one of the most exciting and fascinating ones that I've experienced in my life. And that is the journey into the human psyche, into understanding what makes us do the things we do. Why is it that human beings can be so generous and yet so mean? What is it that makes us say we want to do one thing and then live our life in a totally different way? What creates those internal conflicts, and how can we resolve them, even more importantly? I mean, why would a person like a guy like Wesley Audrey, did you hear about this man? An African-American man is in the subway of New York with his 4-year-old and 6-year-old son and daughter, when all of a sudden beside him he sees a young white college student who starts to go into seizures, and worse, falls onto the subway tracks, smacking his head, bleeding. And as this is occurring, it's like a movie. The subway train is coming full speed. Instinctively, Wesley pushes his kids away and dives on top of this man to try to save his life. The train literally comes over the top of the two of them, missing Wesley's body and head by 1 inch. Think about it. What would make a man instantly be willing to sacrifice his life for a stranger? And yet contrast that with somebody who takes pleasure in other people's pain, somebody who lives for torturing someone else physically, mentally, or emotionally, and feels a sense of joy or significance from that. And both types of people live in this world, don't they? Is it our background? Is it our environment that shapes that? Well, if that were true, then you have to answer this question. How is it that someone who's been given everything, unbelievable support and love from their family, tremendous education, economic opportunity, how is it that people like that very often spend the rest of their life going in and out of rehab? And then you have people that have been given nothing. Their dignity has been taken from them. They've been punished in ways that are abusive, inhuman, mentally, emotionally, physically, you name it. And very often those people find a hunger inside, a drive to learn, to grow, to give. And they often become the people that inspire us most in the world. We know the stories of the Oprahs of the world. You know, she wasn't given things. But see, the illusion that our society has tried to teach us is that we are our biography. Biography is destiny, that the past equals the future. But at any level of personal honesty, we know this isn't true. But today, that is the model that drives most people, right? Why am I the way I am? Look at my past and blame something in the environment. But what that does is put us in a circular fashion of constantly finding something to blame, and ultimately, at some level, we blame ourselves and nothing changes. I'm here to say that the path to creating lasting change is a very different path than blame. And it's not finding the excuses. It's finding the decisions that you can change your life. It's being willing to identify the patterns that have stopped you. And with this 3-decade obsession, I've had a unique privilege in that my laboratory for understanding human behavior has not been like a Freud where I'm dealing with just one type of person, really mentally ill people. I've had that privilege as well. But I've dealt over the last 30 years with more than 3 million people from more than 100 countries in this world, from the most successful people you can imagine to the most challenged. I've been in situations where I'm doing a seminar for a group of business executives, and all of a sudden this person who's been in an institution starts splitting personalities, a multiple personality disorder person with 52 personalities, and Diane Sawyer is there filming my business environment, and I got to figure out how to turn that person around right now. And I did. Took them a year to follow up to make sure that the changes lasted. And I interviewed the psychiatrist and said, how is this possible? And he says, it's a miracle. I can't explain it to you. She never split again. Or, you know, somebody who all of a sudden their partner comes up and tells me, my partner, I got his notebook here and I read this and I read the notes and it's the person's plan for killing themselves and their children. And I got to do something right now to turn them around. Or in 911, when I'm in front of the room and I've all of a sudden that morning, you know, we have at 3 o'clock in the morning, we're in Hawaii, and I get the phone call that the buildings have just been destroyed. And more than 4,000 people, they thought at that time, had died. And out of that, in my room, we have more than 200 New Yorkers and more than 45 people that lost their entire company, all their friends, their family, their loved ones. And we got a group of people that are celebrating because they have a different belief structure, people thinking it's the end of the world, the end times have arrived. Watching people fight, celebrate, cry, and I've got to make a difference right now. The tools I'm going to share with you in the next few days, I've used in practical ways and dramatic ways, and you can do them as well. I'm not special. But once you master these fundamental tools that we're going to learn in the next 10 days, you're going to be able to make changes you once thought were impossible. Make changes that you may have thought would take years in a matter of hours or certainly within a few days. This process is called human needs psychology. And when you understand it, your appreciation of human beings, both their challenging behaviors and their beautiful behaviors, will expand geometrically, and your ability to make a measurable difference is going to soar. And I can tell you, as a result of using these tools over the last, 30 years of my life, certainly the last 15, I've become the guy that gets the call when the fire is burning. When the athlete is burning down on national television and he can't get himself back on the court, and I got to do something right now to produce the result. And that's part of what's honed these skills. I had to produce results in the moment, or when the son or the daughter or the man or the woman is suicidal, and I got to do something right now. And, knock on wood, it's been 30 years. I've not lost one out of thousands of situations, not one suicide. That doesn't mean I won't someday. I probably will. It's human will. People can make their own choices. But by understanding these needs, I've been able to consistently produce this result. I get the call, true story, when the President of the United States says, I'm going to be impeached in the morning, potentially. What do I do? And my answer is, could you have called me sooner? But you got to do something. You got to help. And you're not going to be perfect in every situation, but you can make a difference. You can make the shift occur. Now, the beginning of my cycle of making these changes started out in an interesting way. I wasn't a traditional psychologist or psychiatrist. I'm still not. What I was a person that loved people, and I hated, as I do today, to see suffering. I mean, if you picked up this program and you want to make a difference for other people, you and I must have the same heart. At some level, you probably can't stand to see people in pain. And you want to do something. You feel a need. Maybe it's, somebody in your family, or maybe it's a total stranger. For me, honestly, it's just about anybody. So that made me have this obsession to look for tools that could make a difference. And as I began to find some tools that were just evolving at that time, cognitive therapy was expanding at that point, Gestalt, hypnosis, especially Ericksonian approaches, if you're familiar with that, neurolinguistic programming, or NLP. In the late 70s, these were things that were really growing. I was just a kid. But as I started to dig into these things and educate myself and find people that were the best in the world at this, I would be so disgusted with a traditional psychologist that might be hanging out with someone for 7 years to deal with a phobia when other people were resolving it in 15, 20, 30 minutes or an hour and really having it work. So in the beginning, I honestly was somebody that attacked traditional psychologists, because I was a young punk kid and I thought I had all the answers, but I was already helping people. In fact, I built my reputation by challenging traditional psychologists and psychiatrists on the radio live. I would say, listen, give me your worst patient and I'll handle them in less than an hour. Give me somebody you worked on for years. That was my code, my approach. Obviously it comes from wanting to try and prove yourself and being immature. Today, that's obviously changed. I've begun to appreciate all the different approaches to psychology and psychiatry. And while I may have preferences, I know everything adds value. So yes, I'm passionate about alternatives. And what I want you to see here is how effective they can be. And the reason I created this program is, today I'm on a different side of the fence. Chloe Madonis is now my partner. Between us, we've trained now over 100,000 therapists around the world. Chloe is an extraordinary human being, has helped me refine my material and teach it to therapists around the world. After all, I've put out all these different programs over the years, and if you're familiar with my Inner Strength films, you know that we have made these films of the interventions I've done over the years, some of the most dramatic ones, where I've taken on people that are in, quote, impossible situations, where nothing has worked for years, sometimes decades or more, where people are on the verge of suicide or their relationship's about to end, and I've been able to step in and create the change. And in these films, we follow up and show that this isn't just change for a moment. This miraculous moment affects their psyche and affects them long term. So we follow up with them 2 years later, 3 years later, 5 years later. And I'm really proud to tell you that the American Psychological Association, the American Counseling Association, the National Association of Social Workers, the American Psychiatric Association, the American Associations for Marriage and Family Therapy all provide continuing education credits for the required continuing education of anyone who wants to be a therapist and stay licensed by studying my work. So we're really helping to make a difference in that area, but I wanted to do something different here. What I want to do here is say, come with me behind the curtain and let me show you not just what I did in that therapeutic intervention, but what do I do in all of them? What's the common thread between all of these situations that can help you make a change in situations that seem impossible or difficult? That's what creating lasting change is about. And that can be learned through these 7 master steps. Again, there's no perfection in anything, but my experience is that if you can use all these tools by understanding the person in more depth first, everything changes. So what do I have to bring to the table for you? Well, in the 3 decades that I've been studying human behavior, I haven't just looked at it from traditional training. Having been with 3 million people now from 100 countries, I've seen everything you can imagine. And I dealt with a kid in the South Bronx addicted to cocaine, and I got to do something now to turn him around. And I've dealt with a top CEO in Hollywood addicted to cocaine, and they give me different reasons why they're there. One because of his horrible childhood, the other one because of all the pressures of success. And I had to begin to say, wait a second here. All these human behaviors, there are patterns here. The things that I've learned and heard about are wonderful, but let me witness what works. And I've had a chance to have a laboratory where I'm working with such a diverse population of people. And in that process, I really became more the why guy.